Just had an exciting day yesterday in court, and in mitigating damages. But here, which is a great lesson in being responsible with that. But I wanted to point out for evidence is You and Your Landlord by M. Jane Schweitzer, Circuit Clerk. It's probably changed since then. For me, I call it the courthouse, and they uh, had a pro bono line with some free lawyer help to provide some on, and they're like your Missouri tenant rights. I mean, each state has tenant rights, but you might want to look them up. The only state I think doesn't have tenant rights is California. Um, oops. And because they have a certain different rent control in certain of their cities. But I think that's right. For the rest of everybody else, the other 49 states within the Union or United States or Republic of the United States, then, um, which is a difference of uh, like a Senate difference, like for the Romans, the Roman Republic or the democracy, the United States. There's a slight difference in the statement of operation in there. Okay, now, in that, page 14, for people in Missouri, because if you're like in a different state other than Missouri, you might have to find your tenant rights through your courthouse in a county within your state. And that would be really important to do. Not all of them are the same. There is evictions, and a landlord may not evict a tenant from his or her home without a court order. Missouri law prohibits self-help evictions by landlords. So here, on the A part, uh, let's see, may not evict without a court order. And that was the first sentence type thing, but as the case in many of these things, you don't want to just go with the first thing mentioned, because there's more in the paragraph. Missouri law prohibits self-help evictions by landlords. It is illegal for a landlord to change locks, remove doors, shut utilities, or take any other action to force a tenant from his or her home. It's also illegal for a landlord to threaten self-help eviction. A landlord who wants to evict a tenant must file a lawsuit and obtain a judgment for possession and request a sheriff to execute the judgment for possession. So this one was is a thing that occurs a lot when a landlord, and I guess in my opinion, is not happy with their tenants. What they might do, other than threaten to call the cops and bring them in on something that I don't believe they have jurisdiction to do, kind of like a warrant. They need a court order to say that they have permission to be on premises to remove them. As much as searching the place of residence. But change locks is a situation where a landlord gets upset and they're like, you know what I'm going to do? I'm just going to change the locks while they're out at work or something like that and lock their stuff in there. But that, according to change locks, is illegal. Yeah. So you cannot do that. And if that does happen to you through small claims court for property, or for them, it's like getting a writ of transit. They have to get a writ to do that lock changing. And if that happens, then despite the immediate situation, you have to should have an opportunity to take them to small claims court. And that is off page 14 in You and Your Landlord, M. Jane Schweitzer, Circuit Clerk. That's the Missouri Tenants Rights, and they have no right There's our state there, Missouri, to do that to your property, or really, I guess, person in that case. Okay, another aspect here. If your landlord illegally locked you out, you also have the right to call a locksmith and get back in. This is not breaking and entering. You have the legal right to possession of the premises, because a lease is not just an agreement. A lease is also a transfer of the right to possession of the premises. By entering into a lease with you and your landlord conveys to you the right to possess the unit. This means your landlord has no right to possession of the unit unless you give it up or a judge gives it back. Gives it to your landlord. If the landlord tries to lock you out, call the police. Tell the police officer that you are afraid for your safety, and ask the police officer to tell your landlord to leave. Ask the police officer to keep the peace. Okay, B of that, we just did A here, and it was A1 and 2, and now we're going to do B. In order to evict you from your home, a landlord must file a lawsuit and obtain a court order. Usually, the landlord will file either a rent and possession lawsuit or an unlawful detainer lawsuit. You will know if either a rent and possession lawsuit or unlawful detainer lawsuit has been filed against you when you receive a summons to court. So, rent and possession lawsuit or an unlawful detainer lawsuit. And that's really B1 there. And there you go. So, covering no change of locks or shut off of utilities, and or removing doors, or taking any other action, or self-help eviction, or threatening them with the sheriff, with self-help eviction, that they have the right to just go in there and just start throwing their stuff out the window or something, or the right to leverage on them, the fact that they know the law, and with the sheriff, and they'll have them arrested without a court trial already taking place. They can't have them arrested, I believe. And in fact, the cop will probably keep the peace from the landlord doing what they're doing. Ask the police officer to keep the peace. And in the second part, in order to evict you from your home, a landlord must file a lawsuit and obtain a court order. Let's see, a landlord may not evict a tenant from his or her home without a court order. Missouri law prohibits self-help eviction by landlords. It is illegal for a landlord to change locks, remove doors, shut off utilities, or take any other action to force a tenant from his or her home. In order to evict you from your home, a landlord must file a lawsuit and obtain a court order, either through a rent and possession lawsuit or an unlawful detainer lawsuit. Okay, part of you and your landlord, and that's your Missouri Tenants Rights, with the tenant and the landlord, you being the renter or person who moved into the premises. And that's tenant and your landlord. You, the tenant, and your landlord, the tenant. Right there. And from there, that's in the state of Missouri. And you have to check with other states. I believe Illinois is a different state from Missouri, so you would definitely need to call a courthouse somewhere in there. I'm not sure what court Peoria or something belongs to, but you would have to call their courthouse. Everybody has one. St. Louis is a different county from Jefferson. Well, they're different counties. A state might have 140 counties in it, so you might want to check what your county's doing, but your county's probably going to relate what your state is doing compared to another 140 counties in another state. You want to check that definitely. Okay, so this has been You and Your Landlord, Guide to Tenant Responsibilities and Rights.